This past May has been 2 years since my autism diagnosis. My 2-year diagnosis-versary, however you want to put that. What do we call that? What do you guys call your autism anniversaries if you weren't born with a diagnosis like some? I read the first chapter of this book recently called A Little Less Broken, I think, and it's from an autistic woman who wasn't diagnosed until she was 32, and she said something along the lines of, I was a million different people before my diagnosis, but none of them were really me. And I just shed a tear when I read that, because realizing that I'm autistic has been the biggest, most impactful event of my entire life, and I stand firmly in the fact that I think it saved my life. Through learning that I'm autistic and unmasking, I also learned that I'm gay, which I think autism made it much easier to come to that conclusion. Obviously, it took a while, but autism made it easier because unmasking meant that all of the performances I partook in had to come to an end because I was just too exhausted to keep any of them up anymore, and I knew that I no longer had to, because I knew that everything that I had experienced from day one was valid and had a name, and I didn't have to pretend anymore, right? So with that came a lot of practice, like reflecting and learning how to listen to my body and my brain, things that I didn't know how to do before. Yeah, realizing I was gay was cool. That was a step that drastically changed my life as well. I can't remember if I've shared this on my channel before, but when I was about 11 or 12 years old, I was depressed since childhood, and I had a lot of therapy, and they put me on like medication when I was like 11 or 12, and when I was a kid, my mom would give me my medication, and I would save it. I would like collect it because I thought that, you know, I could kill myself. Like, I mean, I was 12, what did I know? But yeah, I thought that if I collected enough of them instead of taking them, that I could kill myself. And around that same age, I remember there was a point where I felt so suicidal that I went to my mom and I told her. I remember I was like, Mom, like, if you don't help me, like, I'm going to kill myself. And like, I was very much a child who learned to internalize everything and deal with it on my own and kind of suffer in silence, right? So for me to do that was like huge. It was huge. And of course, like, that was useless and didn't help me. Like, I literally just got Baker acted, which is like useless. But again, I was in like a psychiatric hospital 2 different times in my life. No one realized I was autistic. I had several therapists. No one realized I was autistic. Even when it was to the point of just like being an extremely suicidal child. I say this to highlight how absolutely detrimental it can be, how alienating it can be to know from a very, very young age that you are different, to know that there is something, right? Like, there is this thing, but not having the language to describe it, and not having any understanding of it, and not having any understanding that there are 2 other people who experience the world the way that you do, and just how heartbreaking it is to like think back to like little child me who was extremely intelligent enough to know that others' experiences around me were not aligning with my own, and that I struggled a lot, right? But not knowing what that meant. And when you lack the language to describe your experiences, you are left only with labels that others assign to you, or with any other possible explanations you can come up with in your own brain, right? But you learn quickly, and you learn to adjust your behavior based on those labels that you're given, based on the way that people react to the way that you react to life. And I've talked about it before. A big one for me was like, you're too sensitive, right? So I learned that I was too sensitive, and I did my best to suppress whenever something was wrong. Anything, right? Anything and everything, so that I didn't convenience other people in my life. And I exploded in private, and I knew that it wasn't normal. Like, we are so insanely intelligent, right? If you meet any late diagnosed autistic person, 9 out of 10 times they're a woman, every single one of them will say some variation of, since I was a kid, I knew I was different. Since I was a kid, I felt like there was something wrong with me, but I didn't know what it was. I guarantee you nearly every single late diagnosed person will say that. I've said it, I've seen others say it, it's in every book you'll read on late diagnosis. We are so intelligent, we are so intelligent. Children are so intelligent, and we're learning how the world works when we're young and when we're growing up, and we're interacting with our parents and the people around us and our environments the only way that we know how. Like, that is how our nervous systems naturally respond to the world. But a lot of us are told very early on that it is wrong, right? So we learn to just like suppress that. I thought a lot about the kind of stages that I went through when I got diagnosed. First, there was this stage of like, I need to know. Like, I need to know. I'm the one who found out I was autistic, by the way. And I took all of my research to a psychologist who was like, okay, let's assess you. And they're like, oh yeah, you're autistic. So if it wasn't for my literal self, I would have never, most likely, would have never found out. By the time I got my diagnosis, I knew there was no way in hell that she was gonna come to me and say, no, you're not autistic. There was no way in hell. So I knew, right? But it was the kind of like validation, like it was that confirmation that I needed, or I really felt that I needed in order to move forward. And even though I knew, there was still this level of like shock. Like, it felt like everything fell into place. Everything made sense. All of my past experiences made sense. Everything about me made sense. My life made sense. But then there was grief, because there was the side of me that thought I was right. I was smart, and I was right all along. I'm a weirdo, and I am broken. Like, I am different, and I knew it. I knew it from like day one on this earth, probably. That's an exaggeration, but there was a lot of grief and depression that followed shortly, because on one hand, I could now understand myself, and I didn't have to judge myself or be harsh on myself, and I could be kinder to myself and recognize that I wasn't broken, I was autistic, and my nervous system works differently, and my brain works differently, and I need different things than I'm supposed to. Maybe my life will look differently. But on the other hand, my whole life, along with knowing that something was different or wrong with me, I also knew that I wanted nothing more than to be normal. As a kid, I wanted to be normal so badly because I knew that I wasn't. And I did everything that I thought I should be doing at the right times in the right places. I was homeschooled, for example, because I couldn't handle public school. In middle school, I was taken out of school and I switched to online school, and I knew that I wasn't normal. I knew that this wasn't normal. The other kids were at school and I wanted to be so badly, but I couldn't handle it. And I knew something was wrong, right? And I did everything that I could at the right time. Got my permit, got my license, got my first job. I went back to public school my senior year, went to college, and the whole time I just felt like a fraud, right? Like no amount of like doing what I was supposed to do could make me feel normal, could make me feel like I actually aligned with other people my age, and that there wasn't something that was like making me struggle exponentially more than other people. There was a lot of grief with that. But then came acceptance and the realization that I deserved nothing more, and all autistic people deserve nothing more than to have that information, than to know why they experience the world the way that they do. To not feel like they are broken or deficient or wrong or horrible or awful or incapable of life. Like if I could just talk to little me, I would tell her that there's nothing wrong with her. And I don't know if I would tell her that she's not weird, because she was weird and I still am weird. But the word weird hurt so much more when you knew that there was something about you and you knew that other people could see it too. But I think now I just accept that I'm weird. I firmly believe that my diagnosis saved my life. And I can't imagine further navigating the world without knowing the biggest piece of information about myself. What people don't realize about autism is that it's not a personality trait, it's not an accessory, it's not a quirk. It is your brain. It influences every aspect of the way you experience life. Our brains activate in different ways in brain scans than neurotypical people. We are sensitive. We can become exhausted extremely, extremely easily in this capitalistic and fast-paced life. A lot of us aren't built to succeed in the way that we're expected to now. But that doesn't make us broken. That doesn't make us weird. That doesn't make us wrong. I'm so extremely grateful that I'm able to understand myself now and accommodate myself and take care of myself, because I couldn't do that before, and I didn't know how to do that before, and I never could have pictured how my life would have changed. But all of the versions of me that I was before my diagnosis, I wish I could go hug each and every one of them. But I'm really happy to say that now there's only one, and I know her pretty well. And that's thanks to having the information that I deserved to have about my brain, and that any autistic person deserves to have. I think that 2 years ago, my life finally started, and 2 years ago, I learned how to breathe. I felt like I was holding my breath, like, for 20 years straight, and I don't have to do that anymore. And that's pretty great.